The way you begin the day is the way you shape your life. Most people stumble into their mornings like it's an accident. They wake up to noise, to demands, to distractions, and they wonder why their life feels out of control. But the truth is simple. If you don't command your morning will command you. And if your morning is chaos, your day will be chaos, your week will be chaos, your life a slow drift into mediocrity disguised as routine. Winners don't wake up hoping for energy, they generate it. They don't wait for clarity, they create it, because they understand one thing. A powerful life begins with powerful rituals. A life of precision begins with intentionality. A day one is not something you find, it's something you build. And every morning, before the world opens its eyes, the builders are already laying bricks. You cannot control everything, but you can control how you rise. And that changes everything. Because how you do the beginning determines how you carry the rest. The first hour of your day is not just about getting out of bed, it's about getting into alignment. It's about beating the sun to the horizon and saying, this is my time, this is my soil, this is where I plant the seeds of the person I'm becoming. There is a war going on, not in the streets, not in the boardrooms, not in the news, but in the private spaces of your habits. And the battlefield is your morning. The enemy, distraction, delay, disinterest, snooze buttons, notifications, the passive consumption of other people's agendas. And the victory, clarity, focus, inner fire, relentless, sacred purpose. You have to understand something. The morning isn't just about waking your body. It's about waking your mind, your spirit, your standards. The person you are at 6 a.m. is the person that determines what happens at 6 p.m. The one who rises early doesn't just see the sunrise, they own the sunrise. They don't just have time, they take time. They don't get lucky, they get up. And yes, it's hard. That's the point. It's supposed to be hard. Because anything that builds discipline must hurt before it heals. Comfort doesn't change you, challenge does. Your future doesn't need another excuse, it needs a leader. And that leader shows up before the world demands them. They rise in silence while others sleep. And in that silence, they forge the steel that carries them through everything loud and chaotic that comes later. You don't need a perfect morning routine. You need a powerful one. One that makes you stronger, not just busier. One that sharpens your identity, not just your to-do list. One that sets your internal compass, not just checks the boxes. Because most people are reacting from the moment they wake up. You must rise with intention. Let your morning be the declaration of who you are, not who you were yesterday, not what the world expects, but who you have chosen to become. You start with gratitude because without it, success becomes ego. You move your body because stagnation invites decay. You write your thoughts because clarity comes when chaos is cleared. You plan your day because wandering minds lead to wasted hours. You read something true because if your input is weak, your output will be weaker. You pray or meditate or reflect because a quiet mind is a dangerous weapon in a noisy world. This is not about productivity hacks. This is about identity architecture. You are not checking boxes. You are chiseling character. You are not measuring hours. You are molding outcomes. Each step you take in the first hour of your day is a vote for the future you want to build. And if you string together enough winning mornings, you'll stop chasing motivation because you will become it. You'll stop waiting for breakthroughs because you'll be living in them. The morning is sacred not because it's quiet, but because it's yours. Before anyone asks you for anything, before the world touches you with its noise, you touch your soul with intention. You look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm here. I'm not hiding. I'm not waiting. I'm showing up today like it's the only day I've got. Because someday it will be. And when that day comes, will you be proud of how you started all the others? You don't build a powerful life in grand declarations. You build it in silent repetitions. You don't become unstoppable by waiting for the world to wake up and tell you you're allowed to begin. You become unstoppable by rising before the world has the chance to speak. And the ones who win the day aren't lucky. They're not blessed by fate. They are those who made a decision, a private, quiet, unshakable decision that the life they want won't be built in someday. It will be built in the morning, before the emails, before the meetings, before the traffic, before the noise. It begins with the moment your feet touch the floor and you say to yourself, let's go. Dazed, You have to protect that first hour like your future depends on it, because it does. The world will try to steal it from you. Notifications, drama, distraction, disguised as duty. But the hour belongs to you, and if you trade it, you're trading your destiny for dopamine. That first hour is your kingdom. And in that kingdom, you reign with discipline, with clarity, with fierce devotion to the life you said you were building. That's where champions are carved. Not on the podium, but in the practice. Not under the lights, but in the silence, before the sun even rises. And it's not just about the actions. It's about what those actions do to you. Because when you win the morning, it changes who you are. You don't walk through the day hoping for strength, you carry it. You don't respond to chaos with panic, you meet it with poise, because you already own the one thing most people surrender before they brush their teeth: their mind. That calm, it's not luck, it's earned, it's trained, it's built, and it starts at 5 a.m. when no one is watching and everything inside you wants to go back to sleep. You rise anyway. You rise because your dreams are more important than your comfort. You rise because the life you said you wanted requires a level of you that your old self cannot produce. You rise because the discipline you build in the dark is what prepares you to shine in the light. The mornings you don't feel like doing it, those are the mornings that count the most. Because your body will lie, your feelings will lie. But your habits, your rituals, they tell the truth of what you truly value. And if you value growth, you will not let how you feel dictate how you move. You move with intention. You move with reverence. You move with hunger. Because every single day you waste, you bury your potential a little deeper, beneath distraction, beneath laziness, beneath the illusion that you still have time. But you don't. Time is not promised. And neither is transformation. It is earned by those who show up when it would have been easier not to. This is how legacies are built. Not through big speeches, but through quiet sacrifice, through repeated commitment, through mornings so disciplined that mediocrity can't breathe around you. That's the standard now, not just waking up, but waking up, rising, claiming your territory, owning your space, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because the life you're building requires a version of you that is consistent, focused, and fully alive. So stop calling it a routine. It's a ritual, a ceremony of becoming. And every time you show up for it, you're not just changing your schedule, you're changing your story. You are not repeating your mornings, you are rehearsing your greatness. Every movement, every breath, every step you take in the earliest hours of the day is preparing you for a stage far larger than the one you currently stand on. And if you fail to master the quiet spaces, you will crumble in the loud ones. That is why the first hour is not optional. It is sacred. It is your temple, your battleground, your training ground. It is where the future you is being built. Layer by layer, word by word, rep by rep, page by page, breath by breath. Most people wake up into a world they did not choose, into a rhythm dictated by obligation, fear, or habit. But not you. You wake up with the fire of intention. You wake up not to survive, but to sculpt. Because the world does not need more people who are busy, it needs people who are deliberate. People who rise not to check tasks off a list, but to check alignment with a mission. Because that's the real victory. Not in how much you do, but in how deeply what you do connects to who you truly are. And when your mornings are rooted in that kind of truth, the day cannot shake you. The noise cannot move you. The world cannot break you. Because you are already anchored not to comfort, but to calling. Not to chaos, but to clarity. That clarity becomes your armor. That stillness becomes your strength. That structure becomes your storm shelter. And no, not every morning will feel powerful. Not every day will begin with fire. But that's the test. Will you show up even when the spark is gone? Will you carry the flame even when the wind rises? Will you honor the path even when the road feels steep? Because mastery is not measured by what you do when it's easy. It's measured by what you do when no one would blame you for quitting. And the morning is where that standard is set. You don't need a new app. You don't need a perfect planner. You need presence. You need to wake up and be there for your own life. Fully, deeply, devotedly. Because every day you ignore the morning, you hand the steering wheel to someone else, to noise, to urgency, to the agendas of others. But when you own your morning, you reclaim your power. And that power compounds, day by day, action by action, identity by identity, until one day You look back and realize it wasn't one big leap. It was 1,000 quiet victories strung together by relentless consistency. That is how a morning routine wins the day, not by impressing others, but by impressing your spirit. Not by checking boxes, but by raising standards. Not by doing more, but by becoming more. There will be days when you rise with fire and days when you rise with fatigue. But the promise of the morning routine isn't that it always feels good. It's that it always forges something good. Even on the dullest day, even when the body resists, when the heart is heavy and the sky is gray, showing up is an act of rebellion against the old you. Because every time you keep your promise to yourself in the quiet hours, you are whispering to your spirit, I'm still here. I'm still building. I still believe. And belief is a muscle, a fragile one at first, but over time, forged by ritual, it becomes unbreakable. The more you rise and do what must be done, regardless of how you feel, the more you realize this is not about motivation. This is about identity. You're not trying to win a day. You're training to become someone who no longer loses to themselves. And when that switch flips, when you finally stop trying to force discipline and start living it, that's when the morning becomes more than a routine. It becomes your revolution. You'll start to feel it, the clarity cutting through the fog of the day. The mental sharpness, not manufactured by caffeine, but carved through stillness. The emotional stability, not faked by pretending, but earned through intentional grounding. The physical strength, not from ego lifting, but from showing up when comfort called you back to bed and you said, no, I'm not that version of me anymore. You do not wake early to prove something. You wake early to remember something, who you are, what you're capable of, what your future demands of you. Because the people who change the world do not stumble into their greatness. They rise into it. They walk deliberately toward it, even when the path is foggy, even when the progress is slow. Because greatness is a rhythm, and that rhythm begins in the morning. You don't need the perfect routine. You need your routine, one that aligns with the life you're building, one that reflects the future you believe in, one that says to the universe, I am serious about this. And the universe listens. It always listens. Not to what you want, but to what you prioritize. Not to what you say, but to what you repeatedly do. That's why the morning matters so much. Because it becomes a statement not to others, but to yourself, that you are no longer willing to drift through the day reacting. You are ready to design it, to dominate it, to direct it with vision and intention and discipline so sharp it slices through every excuse in its path. And when that becomes your standard, everything else rises to meet it. Your energy shifts, your decisions sharpen, your relationships deepen, your work accelerates. Not because of one moment, but because of your momentum. Built, layered, earned. One morning at a time, you begin to notice the changes, not in fireworks, but in how you carry yourself. You begin to speak less and act more. You walk into rooms not needing to be the loudest voice, because you've already heard the only voice that matters, the one inside you, forged at 5 a.m. when no one else was watching. That voice no longer wavers. It no longer apologizes. It no longer asks, am I good enough? Because now it knows, I am not lucky. I am prepared. And preparation, that is the secret most people never touch. They chase motivation, but they don't build structure. They chase results, but they don't install rituals. They chase outcomes, but they don't become the person required to receive them. But you understand now. The results are not the reward. Becoming the person who deserves them, that's the reward. And you don't become that person by chance. You become that person in the dark, in the quiet, in the cold silence of early mornings, where there's no one to impress, only a mirror to face and a mind to mold. That's why you move before the world moves. That's why you rise before the sun. Because you're not here to react. You're here to create. You're not here to survive. You're here to shape. And the first hour of your day is your design table, your construction zone, your sacred altar of transformation. There is nothing magical about waking up early. The magic comes from what you do with it, how you breathe into it, how you guard it from invasion, how you use it as a weapon against the voices that once convinced you to settle. And yes, people will question it. They'll say you're doing too much, trying too hard, rising too early, being too intense. Let them. That's the sound of someone who surrendered to average long ago. Let their noise sharpen your focus. Let their doubt affirm your direction. Let their resistance become your reminder that you are doing what few are willing to do to become what few will ever become. Because the rare ones, the builders, the legends, the world shapers, they all had this in common. They took the morning seriously. They didn't leave it to chance. They didn't scroll into it. They didn't stumble through it. They owned it. And that ownership flowed into everything they touched. Their meetings, their work, their health, their family, their future. Why? Because when you own the morning, you don't just win the day, you command your direction. You set the tone. You become the thermostat, not the thermometer. You create the temperature. You don't adapt to it. And over time, something sacred happens. You stop seeing the morning as a duty. You start seeing it as a privilege. You stop dreading the alarm clock. You start seeing it as a call to rise, to awaken, to transcend. Because each new morning is not just a reset, it's a resurrection. Another chance to rise. Another opportunity to prove to yourself, I don't need the world to believe in me. I believe in me. And I show it. Not once, but every day. And when that belief settles in your bones, when it's no longer something you chant, but something you embody, you stop seeking validation. You stop looking for proof from the outside world because your life becomes the proof. Your presence becomes the evidence. Your consistency becomes the authority. There's a shift, not in your schedule, but in your soul. You walk differently. You speak from a different place, not louder, but with more weight. Because the one who owns the morning owns themselves. And the one who owns themselves can never be owned by anything else. You start to understand what power really means. Not domination, not force, but inner command, a silent knowing, an anchored being. Because power isn't something you use, it's something you become. And that becoming begins each morning. Every time you rise when comfort says no, every time you move when the world says wait, every time you build when no one is watching, you are becoming the kind of person who doesn't need hype to perform, who doesn't need praise to persist, who doesn't need a crowd to validate a crown they already carry within. You begin to notice how your thoughts shift. Your language changes. You say, I will, more than I hope. You say, let's go, more than someday. You say, why not me, more than who am I to? Because now you see it, this isn't about willpower anymore. It's about identity. And your identity is no longer formed by external chaos. It is forged in internal clarity. And that clarity, that comes every morning. Like the sun, it shows up, relentless, faithful, fierce. And now you don't need to convince yourself anymore. You just do it. You get up, you move, you act, not for attention, but for alignment. Because the rituals have become your rhythm. The rhythm has become your reality. And your reality is no longer dictated by emotion. It is sculpted by intention. People will start asking, what's your secret? They'll want the hack, the method, the app, the shortcut. But you'll smile because the answer is simple and hard. The answer is, I decided. I decided that I'm done being a slave to my old self. I decided that my dreams deserve better than my excuses. I decided that greatness cannot be microwaved. It must be marinated in the fire of repetition. I decided that the price of a powerful life is the discipline of powerful mornings. And I paid it over and over until it paid me back in clarity, energy, confidence, presence, and peace. You are not just building a better day. You are building a better destiny. And it starts right here before the noise, before the inbox, before the obligations with the decision to rise. Not just from your bed, but from your past. Not just from your sleep, but from your limits. To wake, to rise, to stretch your soul across the full width of your potential and say, this life, I will not live it on accident. I will shape it on purpose. Because once you make that decision, truly make it, it changes everything. Not just how early you wake up, but how deeply you live. Not just what you do in the first hour, but how you carry yourself through every hour that follows. Your decisions become sharper. Your standards rise without negotiation. The things you used to tolerate, the lateness, the excuses, the laziness, the mental fog, you now confront without apology. Because they no longer belong in the world you're building. And your morning is no longer a warm-up. It's your launch pad. It's the sacred space where you recalibrate your mind, recalibrate your soul, recalibrate your mission, where you shed the hesitation, the fatigue, the fear, and step into a higher level of responsibility. And responsibility is not a burden. It is a gift. It is the crown worn by those who have chosen not to wait for a better life, but to create one. Because here's what most never understand. Life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're willing to fight for consistently. And the greatest fight you'll ever win is the one between the current you and the future you, the one who shows up, the one who follows through, the one who doesn't rise because they feel like it, but because they've trained themselves to become the kind of person who always does. And when that kind of person emerges, everything begins to bend. Time seems to open. Opportunities start to appear. People notice, not because you're louder, but because you're more centered, more deliberate, more magnetic. That kind of inner alignment, it cannot be faked. And it can't be borrowed. It must be earned. And the earning happens in the dark, in the early, in the discipline, in the daily moments when most hit snooze and you hit the floor, when others scroll and you script, when others complain and you command. It's in that space where character is formed. Because what you build in the first hour of the day is not just momentum, it's meaning. It's the decision to no longer be controlled by what happens to you, because you've already decided who you will be in it. You become proactive, not reactive, intentional, not impulsive, clear, not scattered. And the world can feel that energy because it's rare. It's rare to meet someone whose peace isn't dependent on the weather, whose confidence isn't borrowed from praise, whose focus doesn't flicker when the unexpected comes. And that's who you become. A lighthouse, a presence, a standard, because you no longer start your day hoping to survive it. You start your day declaring, let's go. This is my time. I am ready. You speak to yourself before the world speaks to you. You align your actions before distractions can dilute them. You set the tone. You create the rhythm. And then you carry that frequency into every meeting, every task, every room. And people will feel it long before you say a word. But that level of inner power, it's not bought. It's not inherited. It's built, brick by brick, morning by morning, through the quiet repetition of doing what must be done long after the novelty fades, through the sacred boredom of showing up, even when no one claps. That's where the real strength comes from. Not in doing more, but in doing the right things repeatedly until they become not just habits, but who you are. So ask yourself every day, what kind of person am I becoming? Not what I'm achieving, not what I'm chasing, but what I'm becoming. Because who you are will always drive what you do. And what you do, especially in the first hour of your day, will echo in every result you touch. And the best part? You're in control. You don't need permission to begin. You don't need applause to continue. You don't need perfection to make progress. You just need to rise every day, every morning, every time. You get up not just to start the day, but to start the fire. To light up every dormant part of your being and remind the world, I am still building, I am still rising, and I'm not done yet. And one day, without warning, you will look around and realize the life you once dreamed of is now the life you live. Not because you got lucky, not because you found a shortcut, but because you showed up when it was hard, because you rose when it was cold, because you believed when no one else was watching, because you built your mornings like cathedrals not made of stone, but of sacrifice, of silence, of sacred focus. And now you walk through your days like a person who knows exactly who they are and where they're going. You don't flinch when the storms come. You don't fold when the pressure mounts. You don't fumble when the moment demands presence because you've rehearsed this moment 100 times before the sun even touched the sky. And this is the reward. Not just a stronger day, but a stronger you. Not just better results, but a bolder rhythm. Not just louder goals, but deeper alignment. You became the kind of person who doesn't wait for momentum. You are the momentum. You don't rely on the mood, you rely on the mission. And now your morning is not a chore, it is a ceremony, a rebirth, a reminder, a reckoning, a rising. And every time you rise with intention, the world makes a little more room for the fire you carry. So rise again and again, and let your life speak what words never could. This is what happens when a soul decides that greatness begins before the world even opens its eyes.